In August of 1993, a group of 7 hikers descended a mountain in southern Siberia after a night of freezing rain. Within minutes, 6 of them were dead, bleeding from their eyes, mouths, and ears, tearing at their own throats, smashing their heads against rocks until they stopped moving. The 7th survivor wandered the wilderness alone for 4 days before she was found, covered in blood that wasn't hers. To this day, no one knows what killed them. This is the Khamar-Daban Incident, the case some call Buryatia's Dyatlov Pass. In the summer of 1993, 41-year-old Lyudmila Korovina was one of the most respected hiking instructors at the Petropavl Azimut Tourist Club. She held the title of Master of Sports in hiking. She knew the Khamar-Daban mountain range intimately, and she was tough. Some students said she pushed them hard, but every one of them trusted her completely. That August, Korovina set out to lead 6 of her students through the range. Alexander Sacha Krisin, 23, whom she'd known for most of his life and treated almost like a son. Tatiana Filipenko, 24. Denis Shvachkin, 19. Victoria Zalesova, 16. Timur Bapanov, just 15 years old. And Valentina Valya Utochenko, 17. The group set off on August 2nd. Everything was mapped out. Nothing was left to chance. 3 separate hiking parties were moving through the region that week, including a group led by Korovina's own daughter, Natalia. The 2 groups planned to rendezvous on August 5th. The first 2 days went better than expected. The group reached the summit of Retranslator Peak ahead of schedule. Spirits were high. Then, on August 4th, the weather turned. Cold rain began to fall, the kind of relentless freezing rain that soaks through every layer of clothing and refuses to stop. The group couldn't light a fire. Their tents and gear were soaked through. They were exhausted, and they were cold in a way that summer hikers rarely prepare for. That night, the rain turned to snow. Korovina woke to find the mountain dusted in white. As an experienced guide, she understood immediately what this meant for a group this exhausted, this wet, this cold. She gave the order: pack up immediately, descend to the tree line, get below the snow line as fast as possible. The hikers broke camp and began their descent. And that's when it happened. Sasha Krisin, the strongest of the group, the one everyone leaned on, suddenly cried out. He was bleeding from his eyes and ears. Foam gathered at his mouth. He collapsed to the ground, convulsing, and then went still. Korovina ran to him. She had spent years training these students, keeping them safe, and now the strongest among them was dying in front of her. She reached him, and moments later she began screaming too. The same symptoms, the same convulsions. She collapsed on top of Sasha's body. Filipenko reached her next. She grabbed at her own throat, as if she couldn't breathe. Then, according to the sole survivor's testimony, she crawled to a nearby rock and began smashing her head against it, again and again, until she stopped moving. 2 of the remaining students turned and ran in raw terror. That left 17-year-old Valya and 19-year-old Denis alone on the mountain with 3 bodies. They decided their only chance was to get down as fast as possible. They started moving. Within minutes, Denis collapsed too, foaming at the mouth, coughing blood, exactly like the others. Valentina Utochenko was now completely alone. She had skipped breakfast that morning. It was the only thing that seems to separate her from the 5 people who had just died in front of her eyes. For 4 days she walked. She followed a line of power lines down through the wilderness, hoping they would lead her to safety. She found a river and followed it. On August 9th, a group of kayakers spotted a girl standing motionless at the tree line, staring at them. When they got closer, they realized she was covered head to toe in blood. Despite a police report being filed, no formal search operation began until August 24th, nearly 3 weeks later. It took search teams 2 additional days to locate the bodies, partly because Valentina herself was in such deep shock that she couldn't yet describe what had happened or exactly where. When the autopsies were finally completed in Ulan-Ude, the official findings were almost unbelievable given what Valentina had described. 5 of the 6 victims, Kroisin, Filipenko, Shvachkin, Zalesova, and Bapanov, were ruled to have died of hypothermia. Korovina, the group's leader, was ruled to have died of a heart attack, possibly worsened by malnutrition. Every single body showed signs of bruised lungs. Rescuers who took part in the search operation didn't accept the official explanation. Valery Tatarnikov and Vladimir Zinov, who helped recover the bodies, said it was simply impossible that these deaths were caused by cold alone. Zinov proposed altitude sickness. Others on the search team suggested the hikers had been driven mad by infrasound, the same theory proposed decades later for the original Dyatlov Pass incident, 600 miles away. But hypothermia doesn't explain bleeding from the eyes. It doesn't explain a healthy 23-year-old collapsing in seconds with foam at his mouth. And it doesn't explain why 5 separate people, one after another, exhibited the exact same violent symptoms within minutes of each other. The theory that has persisted the longest is nerve agent poisoning. The symptoms Valentina described, convulsions, foaming at the mouth, bleeding, sudden cardiac arrest, align disturbingly well with exposure to a powerful nerve agent. And Khamar-Daban sits near territory where the Soviet Union was known to test chemical weapons throughout the 20th century, including a class of nerve agents called Novichok, among the deadliest ever developed, reportedly 10 times more lethal than VX gas. Nearby, Lake Baikal has a documented history as a site for industrial and toxic waste disposal. Could the hikers have unknowingly consumed contaminated water? It's possible, but there is no confirmed evidence linking their deaths to any specific chemical source. And if they'd been exposed to the same water or air, it's unclear why Valentina, drinking from the same river, breathing the same mountain air, survived completely unaffected. Other investigators pointed to something simpler: mushrooms. The theory suggests the group may have unknowingly foraged and eaten a poisonous variety during their trek, one that could account for the sudden, violent onset of symptoms. Valentina, who had skipped breakfast that morning, would have been the only one who hadn't eaten. It's a tidy explanation, but it doesn't explain the speed. Poisonous mushrooms take hours, sometimes days, to produce fatal symptoms, not the minutes that Valentina described. There's also a more mundane theory: exhaustion, malnutrition, and disorientation in poor 1993-era maps, which could be off by up to 100 meters in the mountains, enough to leave an experienced guide misjudging exactly where her exhausted group stood as darkness and snow closed in. Combined with days of freezing rain and inadequate food, the human body can begin shutting down, in ways that mimic far stranger symptoms. None of these theories fully satisfy the details. None of them explain why the deaths came in a violent, rapid chain, one hiker after another collapsing within minutes, exhibiting nearly identical symptoms, on a mountain that hundreds of other tourists hiked safely that same summer. Valentina Utochenko survived, but she has said almost nothing publicly since her original 1993 police testimony. The one person who saw exactly what happened on that mountain has spent more than 3 decades in near-total silence. The Khamar-Daban Incident remains almost unknown outside of Russia, overshadowed by its more famous cousin 600 miles to the north. But the questions it raises are, if anything, more disturbing. The Dyatlov hikers died in a Soviet-era case shrouded in Cold War secrecy. Korovina's group died in 1993 after the Soviet Union had already collapsed, in an era of open information, with a living witness who saw it all happen in broad daylight. And still, no one has ever been able to explain what came for them on that mountain, or why it stopped when it reached the one hiker who hadn't eaten breakfast that morning. If this case pulled you in, subscribe to Cold Case Vault. Every week we open another file the world has never solved. And let me know in the comments: nerve agent, poison, or something else entirely. What do you think really happened on Khamar-Daban?